Hey folks, welcome. I'm just starting a playthrough of Normandy 44, which was designed by Mark Simonitch, published, the first edition was published in 2010 by GMT Games, and then they released a second edition in 2015. I offered a copy of the first edition, but I'm using some of the modified second edition rules, which eases the pressure on the German player. I'm playing this solo, of course, I'm playing both sides, but I'm looking for a bit of a balanced game. Okay, so setup is as follows. You can see the 5 invasion beaches are ready to go. The airborne units have been placed. The 2 little white pieces of paper show the German units that cannot move on the first turn. I later changed these to red counters, but for the moment they're bits of paper. So I haven't played this game before. This is my first run through of Normandy 44. So this all took place very, very slowly. I sat and thought about my moves for a long time and ended up making some really silly moves. Particularly the German first move was a bit rushed. I hadn't really thought through what I was doing. Now, over in the West, the 82nd and 101st Airborne had some terrible scatter results. They suffered some heavy casualties. Most of them were scattered. 5 out of the 6 Airborne were scattered, and which meant that they were pretty much useless on that first turn. There wasn't much that they could do. Over in the East, the British had far more success, and they only had one bad result, which was a one-hit loss and a scatter result, but the other 2 airborne units were landed safely and in good order. Unfortunately, I then made a mistake when moving the British units around. I just completely forgot about these guys, and so they didn't do anything on their turn. They didn't move anywhere. Nonetheless, they're in a pretty good position where they are. Now, out in the West, the Utah landing rolls went pretty well, and they eliminated those German opposition. Omaha Beach was, of course, typically bloody. I rolled a 1 for the initial landing, and when you roll a 1 for the on the invasion table, you have to re-roll. So I think I suffered an initial hit, and I had to roll again where I suffered some more hits before finally making my way onto the beach and clearing out that initial opposition. Over on Gold Juno Sword, the British had pretty good success. The landings went pretty well, but they did suffer some of those DD tank casualties. You can see there on Gold Juno, those reduced tank units. The sword landing was very good. I don't think I suffered any casualties there at all, so they are in good strength out in the far east. And after those landings, over in Utah, Utah, the I guess the main American objective, there's 2 priorities here, is to link up with the airborne inland, particularly those scattered units that cannot attack, get supply through to them. But also, I'm playing with the optional German coastal batteries rule, which places pressure on the Americans to clear those coastal batteries, and that's what I'm going to try to do. So I'm placing 2 early priorities: linking up with the airborne on this turn, linking up with the airborne, and trying to clear the beaches, left and right. So this shows. Actually, this is after the initial German movement. And the Germans are trying to cut off those airborne units. I was a bit passive here. And also pretty poor in my defensive configuration. I didn't stack too well those German defenders, which leaves them quite vulnerable to an American attack. There are a lot of those very weak 2-strength German defenders throughout this area, and I just left them scattered. I tried to put them in good defensive positions, trying to cut off the airborne at the same time, but I'll show you what happens in just a moment. Out in the east, it was a similar situation. I kind of tried to place the Germans behind some of those minor rivers, thinking they would offer some good defensive terrain. The minor rivers close to the beach, I don't know what they're called, but I don't think that was a good idea. I think I should have organised my stacks a little bit more effectively. Lesson learned, anyway, from this first turn. Anyway, you can see the Germans have rushed up to the beaches to try to pin the British defenders against the beaches. German combat didn't go too well. They had one success against the airborne, which forced the defender to retreat, but the airborne put up a determined defence and rolled quite well and managed to cancel their retreat and suffer a step loss. And then the Americans countered, and you can see here on Utah and Omaha, they've pressed out to the west and the southwest. The follow-up waves have arrived, and those follow-up waves were responsible for clearing the German defences along the coast. I had some good success around Omaha, despite the initial failures or the problems with the landing casualties. Subsequent combat went really well, and they've cleared out that German opposition, which means that they can begin from the next turn. They can begin construction of the Mulberry, because there are no German defenders in or adjacent to Omaha Beach. And out in the east, British combat was also very successful. I think the lowest I rolled in any of these combats was a 3. A lot of 4s and 5s, causing sort of defender retreats or D1, defender takes 1 hit results, which really cleared the area out around Gold and Juno. There's still a lot of those coastal batteries around Sword, but as I said, they're in good strength. And yeah, I think they'll fairly easily clear out. In fact, the units that landed at Sword focused on clearing out that well-defended radar station in the area, and they caused an A1D2 result. So they suffered 1 casualty, but they managed to destroy that radar station, which enabled them then to link up with the British airborne. So you can see in this image there's a line from Sword Beach through to those airborne units. Unfortunately, as I said, I forgot to move these guys, and I decided just to live with my clumsiness. And they are in a bit of an isolated position. They're not in great defensive terrain. You can see up in the top right that airborne is already reduced. And there are some strong German units in this area. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the first turn. Here's an overview of the situation. Hard to say, because this is my first playthrough. I'm pretty happy with what's happened. By the end of the first day, I've linked up with all the airborne. There were no units out of supply, no allied units out of supply. If you've seen something that I haven't, let me know, but I'm pretty certain there are no allied units out of supply. We've linked up with all the airborne. We have started to clear the beaches. Most of those follow-up waves could make it, except for at Sword, where there were stacking issues. I used most of my naval support, most of my air support, bar 1 British force. And constructing, this is just at the start of the second turn. I've placed the Mulberry under construction markers. Haven't moved the turn marker along. Yeah, I think it's going pretty well for the Americans and the British and Canadians and Allies. But of course, let me know if you see something I've done wrong or you have any tactical advice for me. Yes, we'll see how it goes. This is the end of the first turn of Normandy 44.